Good evening, everyone. I'm Annette Oswald, and I have here with me Kendra. Kendra, are you still here?
Yes, good evening, Annette. My name is Kendra Cabrera. Welcome, Monterey Peninsula community, to our third workshop in a series that we are hosting called Supporting Families Combating Crisis Fatigue. This workshop has been offered, as you know, in conjunction with In the Root, an educational consulting firm, and it's been a free virtual online series that basically support families and communities during these challenging times that we've been having here in Monterey County. The goal has been to provide effective tools to help us as we move toward 2021, help parents cope, help children cope, help all of us develop resilience, and also preserve our peace of mind. The wonderful woman who has been providing these workshops for us is Dr. Annette Oswald. And I just want to say a little bit about her, just to remind you of her background before we actually go into the third workshop tonight. So, just a little bit about Dr. Annette Oswald. She is the founder and executive director of From the Root educational consulting firm. She's also a teacher here at Monterey Peninsula College. She is an instructor in our early childhood education program. Dr. Oswald supports the community through parent training. She is a qualified autism services practitioner. She also has a BS in special education, MS and an MS in exceptional student education, pre-K disabilities, and an EDD in special education, early childhood education. She worked for many years in the Miami-Dade County Public School System, but she also taught at the Miami-Dade Community College there. And now she's luckily moved here to us in Monterey County from Miami, Florida to teach here in our program too. So I just want to, thank Dr. Annette Oswald for all the wonderful sort of like insights she's provided for us for the past 3 weeks. The past month and the past three workshops. I myself have learned a lot. I hope you have appreciated it. If you need to contact her or myself, please feel free to reach out to us. We both have MPC email addresses. So once again, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Annette Oswald, who is going to basically be doing our third workshop of the series. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kendra. This could have never happened without your support and allowing me to kind of keep talking to you since March, since all this started and we met and we had our first meeting in person and then everything got shifted to online. And I really appreciate you, and none of this would have happened without your support. So thank you so much. It's very humbling for me to do this. So thank you.
Our community appreciates you and all that you've provided and will continue to provide.
Thank you. I'm not going to cry. I am a crybaby, but I'm not going to cry right now. All right, everyone. Good evening once again. Thank you so much for being here and making time. You could totally have chosen to be watching Netflix or Amazon Prime, but instead you're here with me. You're not scrolling through Instagram or inundating yourself with listening or reading the news. You're here with me today with us, and I appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can go ahead and get started with our presentation. So like Kendra said, today is our third and last for this series, a parent webinar. The intention was to give you the tools to combat crisis fatigue. I don't know about you, I'm exhausted. It's been a difficult route to take in 2020, but you know what? I can't wait to look back and say, wow, we were there. And not only did we survive, but we are thriving. You are here because you've been surviving. You're here because you're a warrior and you're ready to thrive. So welcome once again. Today's webinar is going to talk about ways to build and improve resiliency. What does this mean? It means the tools, the weapons that you're going to be using to really empower yourself, propel your children moving forward, and equip yourself with the healthy tools to be able to combat crisis fatigue and grow from this painful, detrimental experiences that we are all in it globally. It is considered a humanitarian disaster, but I also think that we're not stagnant individuals. I know so, you know so. So let's just say our history books are going to be rather thick moving forward with this, all these events that's happened to us in 2020. So let's get started. So we're going to talk a little bit about temperament. The reason I brought temperament to this section of our parent series is because you must understand yourself first to be able to learn something new or improve something that you're already working with. And so you must know what temperaments your children have to see how receptive they are, how willing they are, how open they are. How long does it take for them to actually acquire new skills? All right, so I'm going to talk about 3 different types of temperament. Temperament is evident by the time a child is 3 years old, is really solid. As I talk about temperament, I want you to kind of scan yourself and see, am I a little bit of that? Am I a little bit of this? Remember, you're not stagnant. You're not just one solid type of temperament. You're a mixture of a little bit of here and a little bit of there, as well as your children. And sometimes we'll say, well, my daughter's more like their abuela, right? Like their grandmother or like their aunt or their tia, because temperament is inherited. So that's going to be the first section for this webinar. And then following, I'm going to break down what is resilience, and I'm going to show you the 3 different elements that it takes for you to be able to build and improve resiliency. When I say build resilience, I'm not assuming that you're a blank slate. You're here, you've made it so far, you have some resiliency already in you. What I'm talking about building is actually getting those focal points that are not as strong as you would like it and actually build on it a little bit stronger. And the ones that you're really good at it, you get to improve it and enhance it, right? Deepening a little more of these skills. So I'm going to talk about the physical element. So again, I'm going to talk about your body and overall wellness, your health. The second part is going to be the psychological. So a lot of the inner thoughts. What are you saying to you most of the time? We do talk to each other or to ourselves, actually. And we're going to talk about self-regulation. We're going to talk about empathy, and we're going to talk about competent thinking. And then the third element is going to talk about social network. And here's where I got really stuck because I said, oh, well, social distancing has become social isolation. And we're not wired for isolation. We're wired for connection. And especially during stress and trauma, we tend to rewire our brains for protection because we don't feel safe. So I'm going to talk about the social network and how that is part of your resiliency. So without further ado, let's get started. So temperament. Temperament is an individual's behavior style. It is inherited by your parents and by grandparents. So many times you can say, oh, my mother just came out through my mouth, or, oh, I just did something my mother would have done, right? Or you see your children, you say, well, that's just like abuelo, right? Like grandfather, or just like grandma, or like nana, because we do inherit our temperament from our families. Temperament is evident at the time of birth and is fully expressed by the time the child is 3 years old. I'm a mother of 2 children. They're 2 daughters. One is 21 and the other one is 18. When my first child was born, she was there. I knew it. I was like, this girl is outgoing. She immediately was crying and cooing, making eye contact, very aware of her surrounding, easily soothed when I carried her the first time. Woo, a lot of tears when that happened. And then when I had my second baby, and you know better than comparing your children, but when I had my second baby, I was like, oh, she is different. Her temperament was evident immediately as soon as I met her. She was really quiet and observant, kind of slowly adapting to this new environment and almost asking the question like, why am I here? I was perfectly fine where I was. I don't like this change. Put me back where I came from, kind of attitude. And so, and you'll see when we break down on temperament, there's one that's called slow to warm up, and that's my younger one. I want you to remember that when we talk about temperament, it doesn't determine whether your child is good or bad. There is no such thing as good or bad when we talk about temperament. The reason I'm introducing this to you, or if you know this, maybe thoroughly go into it, is it's a form of information. It gives you information on ways to connect with your child as an individual and respect them for who they are. All right. You get to learn a little bit more about you and who you are based on the temperament. As I was researching temperament, I was like, I would say I'm easy, and then I'm a sprinkle of slow to warm up, but then I'm a little more of the difficult also. So I'm a little bit of all 3 pretty much. So what is the implication of temperament? Well, temperament is a variation, and it has an overarching function in regards to many skills that we have as behaviorally speaking. So we have, depending on our temperament, we have different abilities to self-regulate, how to self-soothe ourselves, right? How to express our emotions, how to manage our emotions, right? Depending on our temperament, you can see how our socialization capacities and abilities are very different, right? We'll talk about like the easygoing child, very easily adapts and makes friends. They're the social butterfly going around the room. At the end of the day, they have a few phone numbers so they can have play dates later on. Maybe you as an adult, you can find yourself doing that. This whole social distancing, I am suffering terribly because of that. But you can also see with temperament how when we talk about socialization abilities, some children are a little more shy and they hide behind you, or they don't want to really go. They want to stay in the car, or they cry about it, right? That has to do a lot with their temperament, and that needs to be respected. Also, the sensitivity to environment. Be aware of you, yourself, and your temperament. How sensitive are you to the environment? I have a pretty big threshold or pretty high threshold to be environments that have a lot of lighting and talking and conversation and people moving around, meeting new people. However, at the end of the day, don't ask me what are their names because I'm going to fail. But I can easily adapt to an environment that way. That's my temperament. For some individuals with different type of temperaments, they're highly sensitive to the environment. They can be easily overwhelmed. This is something as parents that we need to be aware of and be able to accommodate our children based on their needs, all right? Which is important when we're talking about building resiliency. The intensity of emotional response, I'll talk about the different temperaments and how we actually express our emotions. For the difficult child, which is one of the identifications for a temperament, they experience emotions really intense. When they're angry, they are angry, all right? It also determines our mood, and it also determines attraction for novel experiences or the withdrawal for novel experiences. So you can see that they're either shy away or be kind of a little more forward and say, I'll go first, right? How about you? So when I talk about temperaments, which is coming up soon, I want you to kind of scan yourself and think of, oh, I'm the easy child, or I'm more of the slow to warm up. I'm more of the difficult child. And as you do that, be aware of your children. What type of temperaments could they possibly have? Although temperaments is inborn, it's inherited, it can be shaped through relationships and life experiences because we are not stagnant individuals. So let's begin with the easy or the flexible child. So this child tends to be very optimistic, very willing to see the bright side of things, be okay with rapid change. So they're very adaptable to changes. So as you scan yourself and you say, well, you know, I would say I'm pretty optimistic about seeing the silver linings of the pandemic, seeing the silver linings of 2020. I've been able to easily adapt and accommodate myself. Your temperament is leaning more into the easy or flexible child. How about your children? Easygoing? Are they easy to soothe? I know with my firstborn, I was able to kind of carry her and soothe her a lot easier. It was just took like nothing. They're often described as the happy baby, all right? They respond to new experiences very positively. They welcome it. They really are not shy about it. So think about yourself and think about your child right now. And easy child, how many characteristics of this list, and the list is ongoing, but out of this list right now, you can identify yourself or your child with. So the second one is slow to warm up. And so the slow to warm up child is just slow to adapt to novel experiences or change. It takes them a while. Doesn't mean that they are challenging or they have challenging behaviors. It just means that it takes them a while. They tend to observe a little more, kind of be a little standoffish at first and kind of figure out what things look like first before they give it a try. They also have a tendency to show strong negative or positive moods towards new experiences. They either love this new change or they hate this new change, right? So an example of that could be like starting a new extracurricular activity like ballet, gymnastics, basketball, volleyball, whatever it is. And they either love it, very eager, enthusiastic to meet these people, these new friends, the teacher, and get started, or they hate it. There's no middle of the road with the sort to warm up, all right? They have a low intensity of negative reaction, meaning that when something they don't like, they feel like it's not going to work out for them, or they still need some more time to adapt to it, you're not going to see an intense negative emotions expressed in them. But you'll see more a little bit of the withdrawal. They tend to withdraw from that experience or that a new stimuli, or they seem to shy away. And that's an indicator for you and even for your children to be understanding of like, maybe this is too much and too fast. Let's slow down a little bit. All right. So again, scan yourself. How much of this resonates with you? How much of this resonates with your children? So we have the difficult child, and it's labeled difficult child. Is not my favorite terminology, but this is how it's used in social psychology and a lot of the theories in early childhood development. So you'll notice that the difficult child's temperament has a lot of irregular patterns. Irregular patterns in eating. They either eat a lot for a day and then don't eat for a few days, or they really are loving this type of food and then they don't like it at all the next day or the next week or the next month. Their eating habits is really irregular. You can't, they won't have breakfast, lunch, and dinner many times. They'll skip meals or sometimes have a lot more of breakfast and a lot less of dinner. They also, we found that they have irregular sleeping patterns. So they can go to bed really, really late and wake up super late, or vice versa, go to bed really late and wake up really early, not take naps in the middle of the day, take naps in the middle of the day. It's very unpredictable. And you can see with these two factors how it can lead to challenging behavior, because if we don't sleep well and we don't eat well, chances are we're going to be dysregulated. All right. We can also see with this type of temperament that children's elimination process is irregular as well. Sometimes they don't go to the bathroom for days, sometimes they do. And there's a lot of irregularity in that aspect of their behavior. Their general activity level is also irregular. Sometimes they're more sociable, sometimes they're not. You never know what to get. They are very unpredictable children. And that makes parenting pretty difficult to understand what your child's needs are many times. So kind of scan yourself and think, when I was growing up, was I a little bit like that? My children, are they a little bit like that? They tend to be moody. They frequently have negative emotional expressions with high intensity. So when they're angry, when they're mad, you know it, you see it, you feel it. These could be the biters, the kickers, the ones that run away, the ones that tear down some stuff around the house or in the teacher's classroom, right? Think about yourself as an adult. You can see the speeding down the street, cutting off people, running stop signs, running the red light. So it tends to be a little bit more of a challenge here. They tend to have a lot of, they react negative to new situations. So unlike the slow and the easy child, the difficult child more than often will have an intense negative reaction to new situations. So instead of shying away and hiding behind you, or kind of like being standoffish and kind of observing the environment before they try to approach it, with this type of temperament, you're going to know that they really don't want to be there. So it can be very, very negative experience. Unfortunately, because it is difficult to kind of predict behavior in this type of temperament, it stimulates criticism and negative reactions from parents and caregivers. And so today's webinar is not about this, but when I do talk about temperament, especially for this type of temperament, we talk about challenging behaviors and needing some proactive strategies, intervention, and intense work to be able to help children overcome some of these challenges. So what's the connection between temperament and resilience? Well, as you can see so far, temperament influences and shapes how a child responds to something, but not what they do necessarily, because we as parents have a tremendous impact on what children actually do with their emotions and their feelings. Temperament can influence how someone behaves, especially in childhood, but again, because as parents, we can intervene and role model, and I'll talk about that later on today, of how to navigate through difficulties and stressors. So understanding a little better on your child's temperament and your temperament, we can predict more or less how easily or how not as easy would it be to teach resiliency skills for you yourself and teach them to your children. So the child may easily adapt to skills of resiliency, so that could be the easy temperament. A child may take a little while in learning these skills of resiliency, and that could be the slow to warm up child. And the child may require intense help with the management of learning and behavior, and that probably could be the difficult temperament child, all right? So think about how you or your own temperament influences learning to build and improve resiliency skills. So what is resiliency or resilience? It's the ability to bounce back. And God knows during 2020, this skill has been tested over and over again, right? So the ability to bounce back from stressful events, from failures, from challenges, adversities, and even trauma. The ability to recover from events that otherwise, without help, can lead to mental health. It can lead to health issues, and it can have negative long-term consequences. See, with resiliency, you kind of turn off that overproduction of stress hormones called cortisol and adrenaline. And because of that, you get to reduce toxic stress in your body. And if you were here with me for the first webinar that we talked about toxic stress in your body and how to reduce it and how to rescue yourself and your family, you'll learn that toxic stress hijacks your prefrontal cortex, which is all the way up here. And it's the executive of you, is the person who can make the sound decisions, can self-regulate, have impulse control, and have empathy. When we practice resiliency, we have slower amounts of the stress hormones flooding our body. Therefore, we regulate ourselves a little better. And this is where we kick into resiliency, right? It's the ability to have mental and emotional elasticity, stretching through hardships without breaking, all right? You've made it this far, and I will never dare myself to say that you are here because you don't know how to be resilient. In fact, you're here because your resiliency has gotten you here so far, and it's time to thrive. So a little more about resilience, and I can talk about it. I completely adore it. If it wasn't for these type of skills, I wouldn't be here with you right now. I myself have endured a lot of hardships. So it's the process of adapting, guys. We have to learn to adapt well in the face of adversity, trauma. And I not only know how to adapt, but what can I learn from it as well? And again, when you are in survivor mode, when you are flooded with toxicities of stress hormones, you don't have the capacity to learn. You look at trauma, you look at stress, and it's all doomsday. You can't move forward. Resiliency gives you these tools. As I was writing this webinar for you, I felt like I was going up and down the aisles at Home Depot, getting all these tools and equipment to give it to you tonight, all right? So these skills need to be taught. It is not a personal trait. It's not a character. You don't inherit it. Unlike temperament, resiliency needs to be taught by leading as an example. You are the role model. When you take care of you, you take care of others. So if you were here for the second webinar, Coaching Emotions, we learned about emotional intelligence. So really when we talk about resilience, we're talking about emotional resiliency. It's not a personal trait. Resilience is a set of actual behaviors and thoughts and actions that we take and we learn to develop, and involves profound personal growth. We are the biggest tool that we have for ourselves. We're the most powerful thing that can happen to us. Emotional resiliency is actually emotional intelligence. And what emotional intelligence really, the bottom line is being attuned, being aware of emotions, not only on yourself, but in others. So the raw resiliency is what? It's the ability to control, modify, the ability to grow from painful and difficult moments in your life without determining the outcome of your life. So when we are experiencing stress, when we are experiencing trauma, when we are in the face of adversity, like we are right now, losing our jobs, our paycheck is getting smaller and our bills are getting larger, right? Our COVID cases are getting higher, our deaths are getting higher related to COVID, our ICU beds are getting fuller, right? When we have the ability to acknowledge that things seem to be a little bit out of control and we have no control over them, the only thing we have control of is us and our body and our thoughts and our social network. And that's what resiliency is. I'm going to break it down for you, but just to let you know, the body is constantly seeking, the brain is constantly seeking patterns. And these patterns have been broken weeks after weeks, months after months, and soon it'll be a year later that these patterns are being broken for us, right? We're being kind of like disarmed all the time from the skills and tools that we have been using all this time. And with resiliency, we have the understanding that I have control of certain things still. I can control the way I think about this and approach a situation. I have control of modifying how much information I want to read or see tonight about COVID or about all the other stuff that's been happening this year. And because I'm already regulating, I optimize my learning because I feel a sense of control and I can grow from this pain. I can grow from these difficulties without really making me feel like a victim at the end of it. So resiliency is like building muscles. I don't know about you, but that's really hard. But to build resiliency is like building muscle. It takes time. It has to be meaningful, and it empowers you to withstand and learn from difficult and traumatic experiences. So you may be asking, well, so far you're talking about this. You haven't mentioned anything about how to be a better parent, how to teach resiliency to my children. Your children are watching you and they can hear you and they can feel your energy. They can see your behavior. They can listen to what you're listening, hear your conversations. And so when you start internalizing these type of skills and you start acting upon them, your children are receiving that information as well. And so through you, they are learning as well. And I'll get into a little more of like mirror neurons and what does that mean and how does it play a role in learning resiliency skills, or skills in resiliency actually. So here are the 3 elements to build and improve resiliency. The first element is the physical and wellness. And if you've been with me from the beginning of these webinars, I highly emphasize your body. Where do you feel stressed in your body? And what do you do when you feel stressed? I'll share something with you. This morning, I ended up with 2 broken teeth because apparently I'm really good when I'm awake and regulating my stress and my emotions and my behavior. But when I go to sleep, everything gets loose and I grind up my teeth. And so this morning, after $1,000 later and a few tears, I got my teeth fixed, but my 2 bottom teeth were about an 1/8 inch shorter than the rest of the teeth. So what does this mean? I'm holding stress where? In my jaw, in my mouth, and my neck. All right, so we're going to talk about the physical element, how to take care of that. Your body is constantly sending messages to your brain about how you're feeling. If you're happy, you're sad, you're stressed, you think life is terrible. And then your brain says, oh, okay, so you need these hormones. Let me send out these hormones to make you feel even worse now. Okay, so we're going to rewire that type of hormones. The second element is a psychological element. And here we're going to talk about your inner thoughts. Yes, you do talk to you and you talk to you most of the time. And sometimes you don't talk to you so nice and you deserve better than that. So we're going to talk about inner thoughts and how that influences your language. So the things that I'm saying to myself, the things that I start saying to the people around me, it's going to start manifesting in my behavior, the way I walk, the way I behave, the way I do things around, and my children are watching me. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about competent thinking. We're going to talk about self-regulation, and we're going to talk about empathy. The third element is a social network. And like I said earlier, that was a little bit of a struggle because social distancing has become social isolation, not for any other reason other than we are just so distraught. We're so exhausted that we tend to kind of rewire instead of connection. We rewire for protection. We don't feel safe. So we kind of get into our own little bubble and we start disconnecting and severing relationships that are actually our tools. So we're going to talk about that today. So let's jump into the physical element. So where do you feel stress in your body? So earlier I was having a conversation with a colleague and I told her, guess what? I feel it in my jaw. I'm like crunching it all the time and in my ears. I'll share something personal with you because I really have no problems being vulnerable in front of you. My brother passed away 8 years ago by suicide. And I'll tell you, I clenched my jaw so hard during the day, during the night, that I could not move my neck. I could not, my ears were hurting intensely. And I developed sores in my mouth, so I couldn't chew, I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink. I blamed all these external factors, that I was allergic to mango trees, that I was allergic to lemon water, when in fact, really, I was holding stress so much in my head, my neck, and in my shoulders that I was physically ill, and I was not aware of it. When you're not aware of where you're holding stress in your body, you cannot do anything about it. So the first step is being aware, where do I hold stress? Where do I feel tension in my body? Where are you feeling stress right now in your body? Sometimes it's in your chest. Take a deep breath, like, oh my God, I think I'm having a heart attack. I have so much pressure on my chest, right? Or it could be your lower back, right? But mainly is, the back, the shoulder, sometimes is your digestive system. That could be part of it. So think about that. First step is awareness. What are some of the habits you engage in when you're feeling stress? And this is really important. Are they healthy habits? So I'll tell you, biochemistry tells you this: when you're on survivor mode, your body shoots out adrenaline and cortisone. And what that means is that your pancreas has slowed down the insulin production because this girl needs a lot of sugar in her body because she needs to fight this big bear or tiger that's chasing her. Because that's the thing about the brain. The mind doesn't know that the stress that I'm experiencing is not necessarily someone or something that's trying to eat me. All it knows is that I need to be on survivor mode to save this. This is the first thing that needs to be saved. And so we start shooting out all these type of hormones to keep us alive and run when really I'm not running. So now adrenaline starts dropping and the cortisone keeps going up. And then you experience foggy brain. You start seeing that you start depositing a lot more fat in your torso and around your neck because you're not using it, because there is no bear to run from. It's actually your shrinking paycheck and your ever-growing bottomless bills that you have to pay. So what are the habits? When you start experiencing the survivor mode, all the stress hormones, you start craving carbohydrates, you start craving sugar because your body thinks she needs that energy so she can keep running until she finds shelter and gets rid of the big bear chasing her. So are you diving into alcohol? Are you going into that ice cream? I'm guilty. I go into Marianne's and I won't stop that chocolate fudge brownie ice cream until I see the bottom of it. And then I'm like, oh God, I should have not done that. All right. And this is where maladaptive behaviors surface. When we don't address stress in our body, when we are not aware, and we'll talk about the psychological element, when we're not aware that we're saying terrible things to ourselves, and that makes us spiral. And so maladaptive behaviors is abusing alcohol, abusing drugs, becoming workaholics, throwing yourself at work, eating high saturated fat foods, eating a lot of sugar and carbohydrates, and you're very exhausted, you're not using it. So think about, what is it that you do when you are feeling stressed? What are you saying to yourself? And we'll talk about then the psychological element. So you're here for these tools, right? So let's focus on building physical hardiness. So what kind of small changes can you invest in to improve your health? Sleep. It takes you about 90 minutes before you can reach the first cycle of REM, rapid eye movement. And this is where all the processes of learning and pruning information that you haven't used and getting rid of free radicals starts happening in your brain. And then you can expel it in the morning through your lymphatic system. All right. So can you improve your sleep pattern, your sleep hygiene, right? I always like to recommend drinking a glass of water when you wake up, because that's actually, sleep is a behavior. And without it, you will die eventually. About 12 months later, you're going to die if you're not sleeping and you have some sleep disorder and it's really aggressive and you will be very sick. So let's pay attention to our sleep pattern. This is one of our physical elements for emotional resiliency. Drink water in the morning. You go through a process when you're sleeping of apoptosis, and that means that it's actually removing dead cells or damaged cells from your body, and it's going to be expelled in the morning. So many times when you wake up, you have to go to the bathroom. What are you doing for the cleansing of your body? What are your sleep hygiene? Going to bed and scrolling through Instagram or Facebook until you pass out is not a good sleep hygiene. I've been doing it, and this is what happens. Broken teeth, $1,000 later, and a mouth guard being done right now as we speak. I don't recommend it. What about your nutrition? Be aware of what you're eating, all right? Are you willing to improve your health through nutrition? What about hydration? And I mean hydration like water, right? I'm like, well, Coca-Cola's got water in it, Pepsi's got water, Gatorade's got water in it, but be aware how much you're hydrating yourself throughout the day. When we are in the survival state, in the survival response, and all these hormones are being flooded, our salivary glands slow down, because that is not necessary right now. Because when the bear chases you, you don't need to have a watery mouth and digestion, because digestion actually starts through the mouth. That's your first step for digestion. So you're not going to realize that you're thirsty until you're dehydrated. And that's when we get cranky and we start developing all these other maladaptive behaviors. and it diminishes your ability to have emotional resiliency. Exercise. So we can get into the whole different type of exercises, but at this point, I know that you know what exercises are best for you, low impact, high impact. 30 minutes a day is great, but you don't have to commit a whole 30 minutes per day. You can do little sprinkles of it throughout the day until it adds up to 30 minutes a day. Walking, stretching, breathing is also an exercise. You can do belly exercise breathing, and I'll have some apps for you later on to talk about your breath work. Alone time, that's part of your physical element. I know that with the pandemic, we've had to move out from where we live and move in with roommates or family members or with neighbors. We can't afford where we were living, and so we're a little more cramped. And so alone time has become a luxury. When I talk about alone time, again, I'm talking about being with you, and that could be anywhere. It could be in the shower, it could be in the car. When we were teaching online classes just now with MPC, a lot of my students were attending our live sessions in their vehicle. That was the only space they had at that point. And so that's space that you may have right now, and that's okay. And alone time looks like what? Doesn't look like this, scrolling on your phone or reading the news. Alone time is actually realizing that you're sitting, and I'll use my stool here as an example. You're actually sitting and you're feeling your body. We're talking about the physical element and overall wellness of yourself. And every time, because by the way, you have about 77,000 private thoughts cross your mind per day. That's a lot. So you're always thinking about something, and you're always talking to yourself about something. So let's say this is my alone time and I'm sitting here trying to relax, and I'm like, oh God, did I take the chicken out of the freezer? And then you're like, shh, that's not the time now, Annette. You're here now for alone time. So you're going to sit down and you're going to think about your breath, your belly rising, your belly resting, your chest rising, your chest resting. You're going to think about your shoulders being relaxed, pulled away from your ears. Your tongue is pressed up on the roof of your mouth, because doing that prevents you from clenching your jaw like I do apparently a lot. I'm going to just become aware of that. So that could be part of your exercise as well. So what are some of the changes that you are willing to invest for you right now for this physical element? So we got to strengthen the relaxation response. So we are such miraculous beings. We actually have something called the inhibition feedback. And that gets disrupted when we have been in extreme circumstances and our body has toxicity, right? So it's called toxic stress. And it's a thermostat, no different than the one from your vehicle or no different from the one in your home where you can adjust the temperature. And so when we're constantly on the go, and I'll talk about the sympathetic nervous system. So if you can imagine sitting in your vehicle and looking down to the pedals, the accelerator is a sympathetic nervous system, and your foot is on it most of the time. Even when you go to bed, your brain is going da 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 da, right? And so let's pull away from that accelerator and let's press on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the brake. So if you look down and you press on the pedal, that's the brake to kind of slow down your vehicle and slow yourself down. And here, my friends, is where you activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And what that does is that it activates your breath work to relax. It slows down your heart rate. It shoots out serotonin, acetylcholine. So it shoots out all these hormones that allows you to kind of slow down. And when I talk about slowing down, and I'm not talking about less productivity. In fact, the more you slow down, the more productive you are. I promise you. So what are some of the activities at home that you can find that will help you relax? So an example was like the alone time, right? It could be planting, and you can do that with your children. It could be even doing the dishes. I can tell you for a long time, I was like, I hate doing the dishes. Well, I've been learning to actually use it as a meditative form and just pay attention as I'm just washing my dishes. I don't use the dishwasher. I don't know why, but I don't. And so I just kind of like meditate and take my time because it needs to be done. And that's what resiliency is. It's just, it is in the face of the dirty dishes in the sink. And I have to adapt and accept it and move forward and grow from it. So instead of resisting it and complaining while I'm doing it and leaving half of the dishes dirty, I'm going to use this as a relaxation response because I'm resilient. You're resilient. And so think of things that you can do at home that is not to add on to your list, but things that you already have to do anyways that can become very mindful for you. When you do that and you're noticing your breath work as you're doing the dishes, as an example for this one, or baking. I know at the beginning of the pandemic, we all became banana bread bakers. It was like this overflow of recipes of baking. And so people use that as a meditative because we're resilient individuals. And with that, you're putting your foot on the brake system of your vehicle, activating the parasympathetic nervous system. What about at work? For some of you that are working remotely, or for some of you that are still working out there, what are some of the things that you can still do to help you relax, to switch that thermostat back and regulate your behavior? We often don't realize we're dysregulated, and then we think the whole world is the problem, and really it's us being reactive to everything that's happening around us, all right? So these are a few apps that I recommend. There's Calm, Headspace. Plum Village is my ultimate favorite. I use it all the time. It's what got me through the dentist appointment today, and it's what's getting me through tonight. It has a timer where it reminds you to kind of slow down and breathe. It has different types of meditation. It has silent ones, it has guided ones, it has bell sounds. So it's up to you. You are the professional of your life. I know that just by making you aware that certain things can be done easily to help you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, reduce toxicity levels in your body, you're going to tune up and you're going to say, let me do it, let me try it. The worst thing is you're not going to like it. You'll delete the app and you'll find something else. Also think about your other senses. I think for this webinar, I didn't add the brain breaks, but most of the brain breaks that I like to add are either removing a sense or adding multiple senses at the same time to make you consciously think of what your body is doing at that point. So you can use tactile, like maybe a soft pillow, petals, rose petals. I like touching them sometimes. It's weird, I know, but it just makes me slow down a little bit so I can activate my prefrontal cortex and not act like I'm on survivor mode all the time. A smell, essential oils, could be just baking and smelling it, a candle, a visual, being able to admire the birds, admire your children playing and being in the present moment also helps you relax. Auditory, so you can listen to soft music or listen to bells, or your children's laughter is my favorite when they laugh, even now that they're just big grown-up people. It's just the best sound for me, and it makes me really come back to what really life is about. Taste as well. So use your senses also to kind of activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Power pose. So I talked about power posing for the first webinar on toxic stress. And so power pose pretty much is when you start intentionally standing a certain way and you're like this, and you're breathing and you're thinking about what a magnificent parent you are, and you're about to, I don't know, get ready for the bedtime routine after you're done with this webinar. And it's going to be fantastic. And you're going to have some self-care moment, maybe take a bath or turn off all the lights and just lay on the floor and just listen to your heartbeat. And your intention is good for health. And you're power posing about 2 minutes. Amy Cutting, if you want to listen to her TED Talk, you can look it up. And what she discovered is that when we power pose like this and we power pose like this, right, it's impossible to not feel good. Why? Because when we're standing like this and we're standing like this and my legs are kind of hip width apart, you're sending messages to your brain. And what she did was she actually tested the saliva before power posing and after power posing for 2 minutes. And what she discovered was that cortisol levels were dramatically dropped and the testosterone levels of hormones were much higher, which meant that it increased assertiveness, it increased confidence, and it increased just emotional regularity. So give it a try. This is one picture that she actually used on her TED Talk, and I thought it was great, so I just copy and pasted. Yeah, I did that, I stole it. But you can check it out, Amy Cutting and power posing. So you can have this also as your physical element to start building emotional resiliency. So I will share the video with you tomorrow when you get the recorded link. Lindsay Werderall is the owner of Om Studios, and I practice with her and out in Alta. And it's a wonderful community. We social distance, we wear a mask. It's frigid weather, but we're there. And so in this video, she actually did it specifically for all of you. And she has 3 simple movements that you can have throughout your day and sprinkle yourself like you were a house plant with these movements to help you activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And so, like I said at the beginning, you've been surviving, you're warriors, and now it's time to heal. So let's press on the parasympathetic nervous system. Take your moment right now, notice your breath. Notice your eyelids, are they soft? Your jaw, where's your tongue? So when you press your tongue up to the roof of your mouth, it's impossible to clench your jaw, and that helps you relax. What about your chest and your belly? So one of the moves that Lindsay Rotherall has in her video is that it's just to put your hands like this and feel yourself breathe. So the parasympathetic nervous system is the beginning process for healing. It's enriching your brain with oxygenated blood, and it helps you activate the system where it's like that thermostat, right? To start regulating yourself. You get to do your breathing exercises, and it controls your calmness and your rest state. We deactivate the sympathetic nervous system, which actually regulates your fight or flight response, which is your stress response. So parasympathetic system equals your brake, and the sympathetic system is like the accelerator in your vehicle. So body language is really important, as I talked about Amy Cutting. The most important teaching is to lighten up and relax. So I cannot emphasize enough how important exercise is for your body. Your body's constantly telling you information, but because we have that foot on the sympathetic nervous system on the accelerator, we're just going, going, going. We kind of lose that internal navigation system that we have in our bodies. And when we lose that, we end up having some health issues. We end up having mental health issues. I'm an example of that. I'm constantly practicing this. So by no means, I want you to think tonight that I'm perfect and I'm completely resilient. I'm always making mistakes, and I'm always looking back saying, huh, you will never learn everything, Annette. Thank God for that. All right. So the feelings of overwhelmed and fatigue can limit your ability to access that internal intelligence that we have. We call it intuition. We say, I felt it in my gut. It was like a lump in my throat. We're constantly making references to that because you know better. So slow down and listen. Improvement only comes when we become aware, and it's time to reconnect and thrive. Body posture, again, it increases the confidence, assertiveness, you're more relaxed, and it really decreased anxiety, and there was less mental fog. One thing about brain fog or mental fog is that the more consumption of sugar and carbohydrates we have, the more likely of a foggy brain we'll have, and it's actually a term. And so that's just a bonus here to be aware of, like, what is your food intake and how it's affecting the way you think. So promoting positive lifestyles, not only are you doing something good for yourself, but your children are witnessing as well. So they see the nutrition that's happening. They're seeing how we are have a sleep schedule. It's so easy to kind of fall apart with our schedule nowadays, because it's like, what day of the week is it? What time is it? We got nowhere to go, or we got so many places to go. And we kind of like cheat ourselves from nutrition and sleep and hydration and exercise. So be mindful of that. Having these type of lifestyles can strengthen your body to adapt to stress and reduce the toll of emotions like anxiety and depression. So when positive lifestyles become habitual in our lives, our children adapt to the same patterns of life because of mirror neurons, and I'll talk about that soon. So let's have a polling question. So what habits would you like to improve or enhance? So would you like to recognize tension in your body, awareness of breath, notice your body posture, engage in healthy eating, remind myself to hydrate, choosing a sleep pattern? Let's see what you have here. All right, so let me go ahead and share. Oh, here we go, it's sharing. All right, so now you can see here, we have a good number. Eating healthy, me too. All right, so good intention, guys. So being aware of your breath is the next biggest number, and remind yourself to drink water, your sleep pattern, and definitely tension in your body would be the next one, and body posture. So good for you. So let's keep going. Let me see, exit here. Awesome. All right, so let's talk. We do have Q&A, but you know what? I'm going to hold on to the Q&A. We have some chat here. Let's see what we have. Okay, good. So sorry, it's like squirrel. We'll do the Q&A a little bit later because I notice it's already almost 7 and I want to be able to cover the other 2. And at the end, I promise we're going to do a Q&A for you. So if you do have some questions, start writing them down so you don't forget about it. I don't want you to forget about them. All right, so of course, there we go. All right, so the psychological element, this is the second part to building and improving emotional resiliency. So I ask you, do you recognize how your thoughts and your behavior are interconnected? I've noticed when I'm having these thoughts and I spiral, I caught myself the other day. I was walking by and I looked my reflection over in one of the windows and I was like, oh, right? So you start looking like what you're thinking and then you start behaving like what you're thinking. And that can really interfere with the way you parent your children and parent yourself. I'll talk about that you are also a child within yourself. So they are interconnected. Are you engaging in competent thinking? And I'll talk about what that means. So it's very difficult to engage in competent thinking when you're not self-regulated. And we become self-regulated when we are aware of our bodies, when we are aware of our emotions and our thought processes. So what are you saying to yourself most of the time? The first time I heard this was a workshop. I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and the trainer said this, and it had never crossed my mind. It was about 4 years ago, and it had not crossed my mind that, yeah, what am I saying most of the time to myself? Oh, wow, I'm not saying great things about myself. I'll say things like I'm not enough, or people are so mean to me, and then I kind of validate it because I start walking around like that and treating people that way, and it's like, well, you see, I'm right. As soon as I started thinking differently, I was like, oh, things have changed. I wonder why. So think about what you're saying to yourself most of the time. Are you aware of self-regulation? Are you aware when you're regulated or dysregulated? What does that look like for you? As soon as you become aware of this, you can start tapping into your psychological element of your resiliency, and you start tuning up a little bit here and there because you just became aware of it. So let's focus on building emotional hardiness. So awareness of inner thoughts. And what does that mean? It's just realizing that I'm saying something to myself. What did I say to myself this morning when I saw my teeth and they were about 1/8 inch shorter than the rest of the teeth? I said, oh my God, I'm going to be a 40-year-old woman without 2 front teeth because there's no way I can afford this. I'm not going to be able to get an appointment today. I need to stop eating ice cream. I'm really not kind to myself. This is because I've been stressing. I'm no good. Who do I think I am? I'm an imposter. And I started saying all these crazy things to myself. And then I caught myself and I said, you need to stop because that's not true. It's not serving me. And I'll talk tonight about, does it serve you? Does it serve your family? That's important to ask. When you are having these inner thoughts, you need to ask yourself also, these thoughts are serving me for the better? Are these thoughts serving my children for the better? Recognizing inner thoughts is going to influence your behavior. I guarantee you. If by now you have not noticed, after tonight, tomorrow you're going to wake up and you're going to say, ah, I caught myself thinking this, and then I caught myself behaving a certain way as well. We even start walking different. Notice yourself. I invite you to do that. Understanding the root of how you can engage in competent thinking. So what does that mean? Competent thinking means setting goals. It means correcting yourself when you're thinking about something that doesn't serve you. Acknowledging that you are engaging in certain behaviors that you can probably improve. We'll talk about self-forgiveness. That's something that it's part of your psychological element when you're aware that you are going in the pathway that you don't want to and you self-correct. Instead of being so hard on yourself and start spiraling again in those thoughts saying you're not good enough, you say, oh, good thing I caught you. Now I know that I'm saying this to myself. So here is the beginning of it. This is the root of what I'm working with myself and my competent thinking. We tend to kind of treat our symptoms all the time, right? So we're like super stressed. We're like, I'm super stressed. I need to leave. I'm just going to go and I'm going to just have a drink or eat ice cream or whatever, throw myself back to work, right? And distract myself. And those are treating the symptoms. It seems like it's getting better, but then you come back to the same problem again. Thinking about your intentions is also another element in your psychological resiliency. So understanding what are your intentions, what is the outcome of this type of behavior or thinking. And we're going to talk about awareness of cognitive flexibility. And what cognitive flexibility means is just being able to hold information long enough to know what to do with it. And when we're on survival state, I'm sure you can agree with me that you forget. You're like, I don't even know where I put my car keys and where is my eldest son, right? And I don't even know what I had for lunch yesterday, right? You're like all over the place. You go to the grocery and store and I made a list, but I left that list home, or I forgot that I was writing a list and I got distracted doing things. So when we are using our physical elements, so we're doing our breath work, we're exercising, we're taking care of our sleep and nutrition, hydration, and we are spending time with ourselves in meaningful ways, we start getting really good at our psychological element and you start really becoming conscious of your actions. And then you're like, I know where I put my car keys. They're back where I left it inside my purse, right? So when you tune into your feelings and thoughts, you carefully begin to start listening to what you're saying to you. So if you're honest with yourself, you'll say, okay, I have been spiraling. And I noticed because I was spiraling, I got a text message and I just read it the wrong way. And because I was already in my little dark cloud of thoughts, I responded. So I was reactive. And that does not feel so good because you realized, it was all about me. I had nothing to do with them. Something you're going to learn is that when you start practicing these type of skills is that you realize that a lot of the things that happens to you with people, those exchanges that are kind of in the negative tone, you're going to realize that it had nothing to do with you. It was them. They are in their own personal storm of inner thoughts and it projects out towards you. And you'll find that you are doing the same. You're in your own little dark cloud in here of your thoughts and just one little thing, and then you just project it out to someone that chances are it's someone that you love, right? It had nothing to do with them. It's just where you were at that point in your thoughts and in your life, in your day. Had someone call me this morning when I was trying to figure out my teeth. I've learned better not to answer. I'm like, oh, I'm going to wait in that. And that's called impulse control. And that's in your prefrontal cortex. But when we're on survivor mode, we're like, oh, who do you think you are? Right? And we go spiraling. So what are your internal conflicts? What are your perceptions of the world around you and around your children? And again, you're probably sitting there thinking, well, what does this have to do with parenting? Well, guess what? This has to do everything with parenting, because when we become aware and tune up of what my conflicts are, for example, if you were here for the coaching emotions, you heard about being with and shark music. So being with is showing up emotionally, and it's impossible to show up emotionally for anyone if your needs and wants are not met. I promise you. And shark music is those triggering words or moments that happens around you that has nothing to do with these people. It has everything to do with you. And as soon as you start realizing it, that's when you start moving into your psychological element of resiliency. And you start pressing the pause button on yourself, the parasympathetic nervous system. And you use your breath. And you become meta emotion. So you think about your emotions while you're experiencing the emotion. Rather than blaming the world or thinking others can help you feel better, self-awareness gives you the courage to look for answers within yourself. You are the most powerful tool that you have. Another tool that you have here for psychological element is you can write it down or record it. One thing to be aware is that when we are in survivor mode and we are experiencing trauma extensively, like I can safely say we are almost all of us on a global level experiencing right now, your Broca's and Wernicke area in your brain, which is in charge of language and receptive expression and all that good stuff that I'm doing here and that you're doing there, kind of slows down and even shuts down sometimes. So writing down your thoughts may be really difficult. Maybe you can record it, use your phone. and say, well, this is my daily journal of talking here about my thoughts, and I'm not sure why I'm spiraling today. So this is what I'm thinking about myself today. And I don't like it. I like to rewire those words and say something different. It does something to you when you can write it down or record it and express it. Other ways to do that is drawing. My youngest daughter, she's an exceptional artist. And just because I have a really good relationship with her and I can see her artwork, I say, wow, I almost hear your words. It's like a poem. I feel her emotions through these paintings and drawings. My eldest daughter expresses herself through boards on Pinterest, and that can be very soothing for her. It's a form of expression as well. You're the professional in your life. How do you want to express your inner thoughts? How do you want to become aware of them? You want to write it down, you want to record it. You know, if something is too difficult, you may just want to use your cell phone, your personal cellular phone. It's important to tune into what you are saying to yourself most of the time, because you are most likely influence those words and saying to your children. So what you say to you, I was going to say will influence, but I don't want to be that stern about it, but it probably will influence what you say to your children, because we are what we say to ourselves. It's important to rewire our thoughts about ourselves in ways that are compassionate, self-forgiveness. So what do you say to you when you are feeling upset? You are your inner child. You are, in a way, parenting yourself along as you parent your children as well. Our parents did the best they could, but you're doing so much better because we have so much more information, and your children are going to be the best version of parents ever. And we're going to see that through these type of trainings and stuff. So let's go back to your inner child. So what do you say to yourself when you are upset? When your inner child is feeling upset, you can choose to say, I'm here with you. I will not leave you. I know this is difficult, but you're handling it. And I know this may sound a little weird to you, but if I can say this, and I did say this to me this morning, I said, I am so upset, right? I feel like an imposter. I talk to so many people, I parent train, and I do these webinars, and I teach my children, teach college students about all this. And here I am grinding my teeth. And then I said, I know this is difficult, but you know what? I'm handling it. What happens when I say that to me is, instead of showing up at the dentist and being upset because they said my appointment was at 12 and now it's 12:30 and I haven't been called in and I'm here wearing a mask and being all upset, because I've been able to talk to myself this way, I'm saying, I get it. They're busy. It's COVID time. They're working here. I'm just going to patiently wait. I'm here with myself, with my thoughts, my breath work, and I can handle this. I'm here and I'm handling it. If I had small children and I'm having a hard time with my situation this morning, and my children are having a hard time, and I can say, I'm here with you, and I can see you're having a difficult time, but I'm not leaving you. You are handling it. I'm here right with you. Because my inner voice is already using that type of language, and most likely I will start talking like that to my children as well. And all the people around me too, by the way. So when your inner child is feeling nervous, you can choose to say, it's okay to feel nervous. You can stay with me until you are ready. And you can be nervous for a job interview, or you're applying for unemployment, or you have a doctor's appointment, you're about to get a COVID testing, and you're like freaking out, you're nervous. And you say to you, because you're rewiring your thoughts, instead of saying, I had it coming, I'm not worthy, this is crabby, I can't believe I'm in this situation. Or you can choose to say, it's okay to feel nervous. I feel nervous. And we talked about that in coaching emotions. You say, hi, emotions, because guess what? They're visitors. They come and go. They will pass. And then when your children are having a difficult time and they're nervous, you can say, it's okay. You feel nervous. So I named it. You can stay here with me, hold my hand. When we touch in loving ways, we produce oxytocin, which is a love hormone and also a stress hormone. It's a protective factor. And I can say, you can stay here with me until you're ready. Because I'm talking this way to me, I'm rewiring my inner thoughts. Immediately, I start accessing that prefrontal cortex. This is where empathy lives. High empathy, right? And so when we empathize with ourselves, we are available to teach more. We can teach that feelings emotionally messy is a flood of emotions, and it will pass because emotions are visitors. So when you're feeling negative emotions or they're not very comfortable, it's okay, it's going to pass. And when you're experiencing really positive emotions and happiness, enjoy it because it's going to pass as well. So be in the present moment. Teach that feelings are overwhelming and it's part of life, but they're welcome because you can resist them. When we resist, we tend to turn into anger. And when we don't address anger, we turn into aggression. That's oppression. Teach children that their feelings do not bother us and that we are right there with them. So when we're empathizing for ourselves, we communicate this for our children as well. This is where the teaching the resiliency starts coming in again, right? We teach children to be gentle with themselves during difficult times because they're not alone. I'm right there with you. Connecting with your inner thoughts rewires your thinking into competent thinking. And in turn, your words become a language of compassion towards your children because you have access to the skill of empathy. You're up here. So when we talk about toxic stress, all the way down, because you're putting your foot on that brake system, the parasympathetic nervous system through exercise, breath work, nutrition, sleep, hydration, alone time, right? And then now you're thinking about your thoughts, you're rewiring so you prevent that spiraling effect. We are our worst critic. And once we start doing that, my friends, we're moving from the limbic system to the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is wired to make connections, meaningful connections, which we're going to talk about the social network part. Self-regulation. We're no one without self-regulation. So being able to regulate our thoughts regulates our behavior. So if I'm walking around thinking about spastic things about how I'm going to do this and all this stuff, right? Chances are my body is going to start looking like it. So I would have walked into the dentist's office and be like, my teeth are broken. Who's here to help me? You said 12 o'clock. It's 12:30. What's going on? I'm hungry. I have broken teeth. I have a webinar tonight. Who do you think you are? Why would you schedule me a time that I'm not, you can't see me at that time? It's COVID time. I shouldn't be here, right? Or I can realize that I'm spiraling a little bit, stay inside my car, get some essential oil, do my breath work, because I'm not going to get a good outcome if I walk in there all spiraled and all messed up and all flooded with emotions. And because I was able to self-regulate, I walked in there and I gave it my best. And guess what? They gave me their best because of mirror neurons. Mirror neurons work with children and they work with adults. I walk around with a contagious smile and a contagious compassion and love for people and trust. And that's going to contaminate them. And they're going to start giving me that love, that smile, the compassion, and their trust. So awareness of emotions and physical body is essential for self-regulation and to be able to develop resiliency in your psychological element. You recognize ways to soothe and understand yourself. You discover the root of your thinking. Like, why was I so upset about this? Well, because I love smiling. And so if I'm smiling, I got broken teeth. You're going to think I don't brush my teeth. I'm going to feel so sad about that, right? What's my intention? What's the expression? Adjust to changes by thinking how it serves you and your family. And this, my friend, is emotional resiliency. When you can adapt and be like water, right? And navigate through these moments and understand that what your decisions are based on your thinking. And you need to ask yourself, is this serving me? Is this serving my family? And once we do that, we can self-regulate. And when we can self-regulate, we go from the limbic system all the way up here to the prefrontal cortex. And now I can engage in competent thinking. Competent thinking propels you to have self-acceptance and find experiences meaningful. So tonight I'm not playing the TED Talk because it takes a little time, and I promise we're going to keep it short tonight so you can rest and enjoy the evening. And I know the holidays are coming in, so just to keep your attention, I'm not playing the TED Talk, but the link is there. I'm going to share the link tomorrow with the recorded link of tonight's webinar, and you get to enjoy it. This young lady, TED Talk was really touching. I said I was a crybaby. I cried. She lost her daughter 5 years ago to a car accident. And if you talk about pain and hardship, she has it all. She's experienced it. And so she, through her work of accepting the fact that she will never see her daughter again, She will never see her daughter grow. And she turned it around. Instead of disparity and hate, she turned it around to love and compassion. So I invite you to watch this link, to watch this TED Talk tomorrow through the link we're going to share. It's about, I believe, 17 minutes long. I enjoyed it. I know you are too. So enjoy that. So let's do a quick polling. So which qualities would you like to build or enhance when we talk about the psychological element? Would you like to view change as an opportunity for growth? Have a sense of humor in times of difficulty? That's important. Strengthening effects of a stress, adaptability to change, optimism and being hopeful. Patience, we've had to practice patience so much. Tolerance to negative effects. All right. So we have here your, let me see, the majority of you said adaptability to change. Honestly, it's been a difficult one. And we're going to master change after this year. There's so many changes. All right. And so we have 50% of you tolerance to negative effects. And then the rest of you kind of trickled. Okay, we got 33% strengthening effects of stress. So yeah, good for you. So I like to ask these questions to kind of make you internalize the information. I feel like I'm just here alone rambling around. And so just see if you're still there with me. So thank you for participating. Let's continue with our next one. So do I need to remove that? Let me see. I'm going to remove it. All right. So the third element is the social network element. And this was the tricky one with the social distancing. I know when I first moved here from Miami last July, the first thing I did was like go into the Monterey Weekly and the Carmel Pine and just go through there and see what what kind of organizations I could be part of, and kind of start joining the community and build my social network out here in the West Coast. And now it's like flat, right? So the social network, when we talk about resiliency, is interpersonal relationships that are vital for your well-being. We are social beings. Even the introverts are like, okay, I'm an introvert, but I need social interactions every so often, right? So seeking out meaningful relationships, not just anyone, but relationships that actually share your values and beliefs and that actually help you and serves you as a protective factor. So we have risk factors. We know about those. Let's kind of pump up our protective factors. So these type of relationships share your beliefs and values, especially during hardships, which is now, we're in it right now. So surrounding ourselves with relationships that have mutual goals and similar life aspirations is a good thumbs up, right? They serve you as a protective factor. They help you with the support that you need and the growth in your life, because that's what resiliency is. Resiliency, the bottom line is not only you're bouncing back from adversity, but you're also personally growing. I'm sure it's not, oh, there it goes. So no social network can feel very isolating. All right. And I know for the first webinar, I talked about our sub-communities, individuals that have compromising immune systems, especially, and our elders, they've been really, really distant. They've really been disengaged, they've been isolated from any or very minimal social interaction. And that can feel very disempowering. So the pain of trauma events can make you feel very isolated from your loved ones. I myself feel very disconnected. I feel very, sorry, I feel very disconnected from myself as well. We feel isolated from our support group. When I'm working with our families that have children with neurodiverse needs, that have special needs, we feel very alone. We don't have that team that was there physically going to school. We don't have the therapists, right? Can't see the doctors as often. So we really have to work harder with this type of circumstances that we're living through to be able to continue with our social network and build on it. Because we've been kind of distant, we tend to validate that we're not, that we're the only ones suffering, until you start realizing that we're not. Then you start reconnecting with people and intensify the feeling of loneliness and pain. One thing that happened to me, interesting, was when I first moved here, I joined a organization that promotes professionalism in women, and it was great meeting all these women. But then when COVID hit, it was kind of like, okay, everybody got into their bubble back in March. And I disconnected from pretty much everyone. And just a few weeks ago, one of the ladies called me, and she's like, "Hi, Annette, how are you?" And I was like, "Hey, hi, I'm doing good. How are you?" And she's like, "I'm doing great." And I was like, "Do I ask, why are you calling me? That's so weird." And I did. I said, "So, how can I help you? Why are you calling me?" And she's like, I'm so lonely. I'm just going through my contacts, and I figured I need to start calling people and see how everybody else is doing because I'm not doing good. And so I'm here connecting. Is there anything I can do for you? I can go pick up groceries and drop them off at the front door, and you can sell me the money later, or anything, pick up your mail, whatever you need. And I was like, that is brilliant, because that's resiliency, right? So you got to prioritize your relationships and encourage your support. So that was great. So ever since she called me, I've been texting her, and we kind of reconnected. And it feels great to know that I'm not the only one suffering. I'm not the only one feeling isolated. And that, thank goodness, we have the capacity of technology to be able to communicate with others. So build your social network through online organizations. I have it here. You can reestablish relationships through the phone. You can call people, text people, FaceTime, other forms of communication. Your neighbors are your closest relative. As long as you're safe and you're social distancing, they are part of your social network. Why? They have the same values or similar values and beliefs as you when it comes to our neighborhood safety and keeping the streets clean. If a bird attacks one of our trash bins and there's trash everywhere, like it sometimes happens here, our neighbors, we just kind of like pick it up, we wear gloves, and we're like in it together. And that makes you feel secure. Remember that when you feel safe and you feel like you're in an environment that's trustworthy, you immediately start optimizing your learning. You move to your prefrontal cortex. Why? Because your stress hormones reduce. You feel like there's some cushion, there's some support to catch you. Someone's got your back. So find ways through social media and other online organizations to be of service. That is extensively rewarding. I'll tell you, honestly, doing these webinars have been a blessing. Why? You, without me knowing what you look like, what your voice sounds like, any of your names other than a list in your registration, how many children you have, or any of that type of information, you have motivated me to stay engaged, to feel the need that I can use myself as a tool to be instrumental in your life and give you these tools and alleviate you and be your protective factor. Just by doing this, you have become indirectly my social network, believe it or not. And I'm hopeful that in a way I have become part of your social network and I can be your protective factor as well. So reach out, see who needs your help. Maybe just to talk to them for 10 minutes or 15 minutes on the phone, or text message and send funny pictures of your dog or your cat. Reestablish these relationships, reconnect. Our brain is wired for connection. All right. As soon as you feel like you need to disengage and protect yourself, you're starting to experience trauma. Our brains are wired for connection, but trauma rewires them for protection. TED Talk. Can you guess? TED Talk is my favorite. What makes a good life? This is a gentleman. He picked up that rolling ball of this 75-year-old research being done in Harvard University. And so he followed, or they started following, I believe, don't get me right on the numbers, but I think it was 475 men. And I think right now there's about 14 men left. And they asked them questions about, what is living a good life? I invite you to watch it. It's about 13 minutes long, really cool. Tomorrow you'll get the link. And for me, what I really took was that I have very little regrets of not making these connections. Human beings, we are social beings, and really our life becomes very meaningful when we connect with other people in compassionate ways. So I invite you to watch this tomorrow. Polling question: what skills would you like to build or enhance? So what? Engaging in support of others, creating close, secure attachments to others, seeking local resources, providing me with a sense of community, or finding social media networks that provide you a sense of community. Know where to turn to for help. Yes, I hear you. Me too. So really trying to find close, secure attachments with others is really important. This is really the golden child when we talked about attachment styles. So and then also seeking local resources that provide you a sense of community. I'm telling you, when you start seeking these type of communities, you become of service to other people as well. And it's like endorphins all the way. Your perspective in life changes to a much more optimistic and positive view. Know where to turn to is also a good one. And the next one was engaging in support of others. So good for you. Here we go. So I've been talking about mirror neurons. And so when we practice these three elements, the physical, the psychological, and the social networking, your children are there and they're watching. Remember, your children are watching you all the time, everything that you do, because they have so much to learn and they have so much neuroplasticity that they're constantly emulating and imitating their surroundings. All right. And so by you exercising these type of positive lifestyles, they're going to start picking up on it. All right. Mirror neurons actually allow us to imitate and enables us to reflect on body language and facial expression and even emotions. The more they're exposed to these type of behaviors, the more likely they're going to start acting upon it and thinking that way and using that type of words and language, and they're going to become better friends. When we do things like this, you're going to notice that their undesirable behaviors is going to start dropping and the desirable behaviors are going to start increasing. I promise you. Consider temperament when we first met this evening, and think about their temperament and how do you tune up with their temperament and your temperament to be able to start teaching these type of skills. Invite them when you're doing breath work, invite them to be part of it. When you're exercising, invite them to be part of it. Doing the dishes, invite them, come do the dishes together. And let's notice how the bubbles start scrubbing away the dirt on the dishes, right? The pasta sauce. Because the more you do this, it's a ripple effect. The more they're going to do that. And before you know it, you're going to notice that the dishes were done. You notice I don't like doing the dishes. So promote doing the dishes together. Let the mirror neurons start kicking in and start building all these emotional resiliency for your children and for yourself as well. So this quote got me. So when children repeatedly witness parents and caregivers engaging in hostile or destructive behaviors when there is conflict, they learn to associate love with a lack of safety. So you get to choose what pieces you give of yourself to your child or to your children. What would you want them to be witnessing? When we associate love with a lack of safety, we're talking about toxic relationships. All right, as promised, do we have any questions out there that you would like to ask now? Let's see. Okay, good. So if you do have any questions, you can always reach out to me. I'm from the Root, so you can go into my website and email me from there. Also, I'm a professor at MPC, so you can find me at aoswald at mpc.edu. Hold on, I think I see something here. I see a bubble. All right, so yes, I am planning to come up with more webinars for you guys. It's been such a humbling experience. I'm gonna try not to cry, but yes, most definitely, I plan to create more webinars. I'm not gonna do the 3 hours. That was really exhausting for you guys and for me. So, but less is more for sure. So yes, the answer is yes. I'm being real lengthy right now, but yes, definitely I am. I was asked if I would consider bilingual, English and Spanish. I am bilingual. I speak Spanglish. So I'm contemplating the idea of doing that. I would love to. The only hesitation is, do I know enough Spanish to do this in Spanish? So, but I am thinking about that as well. So yes. So let's keep moving forward. I have here a few more slides to share with you before I let you go. So let's raise a generation of children who know deep in their bones that their worth is rooted of who they are, not what they do. All right. And this is admitted through emotional resiliency. You are the root of it. You are worth it because of who you are. Your parents in the middle of a pandemic, my goodness gracious. All right. So I appreciate you. When you appreciate you appreciate more. When you appreciate your children, they start appreciating as well. Acknowledge them for who they are. Here's a little quick thing about psychologically coping through the pandemic. I had to delete my news app. I had to delete social media for a while. I was going crazy with all the stuff that was coming in through my eyes. I was like, oh, I can't do this anymore. So notice yourself. This goes back to your psychological element. Notice, are you overconsumption in news? Are you consumed with media? You may want to tone it down a little bit and take a break. You may be talking too much about the negativity of things that's happening. You may want to kind of tune out a little bit and take yourself, give yourself a break. We've gone through worse as a society, as humankind. We've been through atrociousness. We're gonna get through this, I promise you. All right. So remember that this will also pass. Build your resiliency. You're here because you're done with surviving. You're ready for thriving. Stay connected. Keep things in perspective, and have a plan. If you or your loved one have not been diagnosed with COVID, if you do, think about it. This is what regulated individuals do. They kind of more or less have a plan in case if something does happen. All right. Tomorrow you'll receive this link with all the TED Talks. I hope you enjoy it. Be kind to yourself. In each of us, there's an innate ability to create joy out of suffering, to find hope in most of hopeless of situation, and to heal any relationship that needs of healing. You begin with your relationship with you first. Hope and heal. It's time to heal, relax, improve, be vibrant, and empathize. You're ready to thrive, guys. I hope you have a wonderful winter break, holidays, a new year of health. Be vibrant, be gentle with yourself. Those who take care of themselves, take care of others. Special thanks to David Martin and John Coe, Kendra Cabrera, Emily Mitchell. Big shout out to you, girl, for keeping me sane, and Lindsay Ruderall. And here's some local resources. The first bullet is me, that's my website. You can shoot me an email. Summit Health Services, I provide parent training services for them. Wonderful company. Jessica Swanson is the bomb. And here are some other local resources. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening. Take care. I will see you soon. Buenas noches.
Hey, Annette.
Yes.
We had one last minute question come into the
Yes.
chat.
Let's see what we have here.
We have, how do you help the elderly that may be coping with cognitive decline?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the best thing to do, although that's not my area of expertise, is music. So I don't know if you are in contact with this person, you can physically visit them or FaceTime or talk to them on the phone, but music is beautiful. There is a video, it's through Conscious Discipline, and they're showing through this video a song that's Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And if you're there in person, you can do Twinkle Twinkle Little Star with this person. And it sounds weird, but it's amazing the connection we build through music that they are aware of. If it's in Spanish, there's all these nursery rhymes in Spanish that we can do too, but music is a savior. It activates different parts of the brain. I think it was Instagram that shared a video of a ballet dancer. She's now like in her 90s, and they were able to play some of the ballet songs that she used to dance to. And from her wheelchair, she was able to kind of move to the sound and kind of like reminisce those memories. So to be able to connect with the elders, especially that are cognitively declining, music is a pathway to reconnect with them. I hope that answers your question. Maybe coping with cognitive. We will share a website in the email. Okay, great. You're welcome. All right, guys.